The kitchen smelled like my mother's famous pot roast, the same recipe she'd been making every Sunday for 30 years. I pushed the carrots around my plate, gathering courage for what I was about to say. "I'm thinking of leaving Morrison and Associates," I announced, my voice steadier than my hands. My brother Derek snorted. "Again, what is it this time, Serena? Another one of your big ideas. Stop living in fantasy land." Mom laughed, not even looking up from serving Dad another helping. "You have a perfectly good job as a paralegal. Benefits, stability, a pension plan. Get a real job. Well, keep the real job you have." "I have a business plan," I continued, pulling out the folder I'd hidden under my chair. "I've been working on it for 2 years. There's a gap in the market for sustainable packaging solutions that—" "Sustainable packaging?" Dad set down his fork. "Honey, you don't know anything about packaging, or manufacturing, or running a business. I've been taking night classes. Business management, supply chain logistics, environmental science. I've saved enough to—" "Serena Blake, you're 34 years old," Mom interrupted, her tone shifting from amused to exasperated. "When are you going to stop chasing rainbows? Your sister's a doctor. Derek's a financial advisor. They understood the assignment. Find a good job, work hard, build a stable life. Like you did." The words slipped out before I could stop them. The silence was deafening. Mom's face darkened. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing. I worked at the post office for 35 years, she said coldly. "Your father drove trucks. We gave you kids everything. Stability, security, a roof over your heads. I know, Mom. I'm grateful. But nothing. You think you're too good for a regular job? Too special to clock in and clock out like the rest of us." I closed the folder. "I'm going to do it anyway." "With what money?" Derek laughed. "You going to package things in fairy dust and unicorn dreams?" "I've saved $40,000. The table went quiet again. My sister Jasmine, home from her residency, finally spoke. "Serena, that's your entire savings. What if it fails?" "Then I'll have tried," I said simply. Mom stood abruptly, starting to clear plates with unnecessary force. "Fine. Throw your life away. But when you're broke and begging for your job back, don't come crying to me." That was 3 years ago. Now, I stood in my tiny apartment, the one I'd moved into after selling my car and downsizing everything to fund my startup. The walls were covered with whiteboards full of supply chain diagrams, cost analyses, and partnership deals. My office was a desk wedged between the bed and kitchenette. The phone rang at 7 a.m. I was already awake, reviewing a contract from our latest retail partner. "Serena Blake?" The voice was professional, crisp. "Speaking. This is Amanda Fitzgerald from Forbes magazine. We've been following EcoWrap Solutions' remarkable growth trajectory. We'd like to feature you and your company in our upcoming Unicorns Under 40 cover story." I nearly dropped my coffee. "I'm sorry, could you repeat that?" "Forbes would like to do a feature on your company. Our research shows you've gone from a $40,000 personal investment to a $1 billion valuation in just 3 years. That's a story our readers need to hear." Yes. Yes, of course. I'd be honored." "Excellent. We'll need to conduct several interviews. Would it be possible to start with your family? We like to get a complete picture of our featured entrepreneurs. Could we call your parents home this afternoon?" My stomach dropped. "My family? It's standard for our profiles. We've found that family perspectives add depth to." "Of course," I heard myself say. "Let me give you their number." After hanging up, I stared at the phone. 3 years. 3 years of 18-hour days, eating ramen while my peers dined at restaurants. 3 years of rejections, pivots, and small victories my family knew nothing about. I'd stopped going to Sunday dinners after the 5th time Mom introduced me to someone as our dreamer daughter who's playing businesswoman. I called my sister. Jasmine answered on the 3rd ring, hospital sounds in the background. "Jazz, I need to tell you something." "Are you okay? Are you sick?" "No, Forbes is doing a story on my company." Silence. Then, "Forbes? The magazine? They're calling Mom and Dad this afternoon." "Oh my God. Do they know about that my sustainable packaging company just hit $1 billion valuation?" "No. $1 billion? Serena, what the hell? Last time we talked, you were worried about making rent." "That was 2 years ago, Jazz. You haven't returned my calls since." More silence. "Mom said you were too proud to admit failure. She said you'd come around when reality hit." Reality did hit. Just not the way she expected. I heard her pager go off. I have to go. But Serena, I'm proud of you. I should have said that 3 years ago. By noon, my phone was exploding. Derek texted first. Is this real? Mom's freaking out. Then Mom herself, her voicemail shaky. Serena, honey, please call me back. There's been some confusion. A reporter called about some company, and they mentioned your name. I didn't call back. Not yet. Instead, I walked through our new facility, 100,000 square feet of manufacturing space, where we produced biodegradable packaging that dissolved in water within 30 days. 500 employees who believed in the vision. Contracts with major retailers across 3 continents. My CFO, Harrison, found me on the production floor. The Forbes photographer wants to know if you'll do the shoot here or at headquarters. Here, I said, watching the machinery hum. This is where it all happens. Your origin story is going to be incredible, he grinned. From paralegal to packaging revolutionary. Although, he hesitated. I heard them mention they're interviewing your family. That could be interesting, considering they don't know anything about this? Yeah. Harrison had been with me since year 2. He'd seen me sleeping on the office floor, living on vending machine dinners, crying over failed pitches. He was one of the few who knew why I never talked about family. You could prep them, he suggested. Tell them what to say. No, I said firmly. Let them tell their truth. The Forbes team arrived at my parents' house at 3 p.m. I know because Derek live texted the whole thing, his messages increasingly frantic. They're asking about your childhood entrepreneurship. Mom's making stuff up about always supporting you. Dad just claimed he gave you business advice. The reporter knows they're lying. They just asked about the billion-dollar valuation. Mom dropped the phone. Literally dropped it. I could picture it perfectly. Mom in her good living room, the one reserved for guests, probably wearing her church dress on a Tuesday. Dad in his recliner, trying to look like he understood terms like Series B funding and market disruption. The final text from Derek was different. They're crying. Both of them. I've never seen Dad cry. That evening, I finally went home. Not to my apartment, but to the house where I'd announced my crazy dream over pot roast. Mom answered the door, her eyes red-rimmed. Serena. We stood there, 3 years of silence stretching between us. $1 billion, she whispered. They said your company is worth $1 billion. 1.2 billion, actually. We just closed our latest funding round. She laughed, a broken sound. I told them you were wasting your life. I told everyone my daughter was playing pretend CEO while her peers were building real careers. I know. Why didn't you tell us? These 3 years, why didn't you? Would you have believed me? I asked gently. When I hit my first $1 million in revenue, would you have believed me? Or would you have found a way to minimize it? To tell me it wasn't sustainable, wasn't real success? Her face crumpled. Dad appeared behind her, looking older than I remembered. We failed you, he said simply. You came to us with a dream, and we tried to crush it. I stepped inside, into the house that smelled like lemon pledge and disappointment. The dining room table was covered with printed articles about my company. Clearly, they'd been doing frantic research. Is this real? Mom held up a photo of me shaking hands with the governor at the Green Innovation Awards. This happened last month? That was when we announced our carbon-negative manufacturing process. We're the first in the industry to achieve it. Derek emerged from the kitchen. Serena, God, I'm an ass. All those jokes about fairy dust and unicorns. And you actually built a unicorn company. You couldn't have known, I said. But I could have supported you. We all could have. He looked miserable. I manage portfolios for millionaires, and I couldn't see the billionaire potential in my own sister. We sat around the kitchen table, the same one where I'd announced my plans. This time, Mom served coffee with shaking hands. The reporter asked about your entrepreneurial spirit as a child, she said quietly. I couldn't answer. I realized I never paid attention. I was so focused on you kids being safe, being stable, that I never noticed who you actually were. You did your best, I said, meaning it. You grew up in poverty. Stability meant everything to you. But at what cost? Dad's voice was rough. We pushed you away. Our own daughter, building something incredible, and we pushed you away because it didn't fit our definition of success. Tell us, Mom said suddenly. Tell us everything. These 3 years, tell us what we missed. So I did. I told them about sleeping in the office during the early days. About the first major rejection that nearly broke me. About the breakthrough with the seaweed-based polymer that changed everything. About hiring my first employee, then my 10th, then my 100th. The night before our series of funding, I said, I almost called you. I was terrified, certain I was about to fail. I wanted to hear your voice, Mom. But I knew what you'd say, that it was a sign to give up, to go back to my real job. I would have, she admitted, tears streaming. God help me, I would have told you to quit. And I would have kept going anyway. But it would have hurt. Jazz arrived around 8, still in scrubs. She hugged me tighter than she had in years. I've been reading about your company all day. Do you know how many lives your packaging could save? The environmental impact. That's why I started it, I said. Remember that documentary we watched about ocean plastic? You said someone should do something. And you did. She shook her head. My little sister, saving the world while I save one patient at a time. The Forbes story would run next month, but rumors were already spreading through our extended family and Mom's church community. Her phone rang constantly, friends who'd heard whispers, relatives suddenly remembering how they'd always believed in me. What do I tell them? Mom asked, looking lost. All these years, I've been telling them you were wasting your life. Now they want to know about your success, and I don't know anything. Tell them the truth, I suggested. That you have a daughter who took a different path. That it's never too late to learn about someone you love. Will you teach me? She asked quietly. About your company, your vision? I want to understand. Of course. Derek cleared his throat. Actually, I've been thinking. If you ever need investment advice, or someone to manage the financial planning for your employees. I smiled. Send me a proposal. But Derek, no family discounts. You'll have to earn it like everyone else. Fair, he grinned. More than fair. As the evening wound down, Mom pulled me aside. That reporter asked me what advice I gave you about entrepreneurship. I told them the truth, that I told you to stop dreaming. She paused. They asked if I regretted it. I said it was the biggest regret of my life. Mom. No, let me finish. They asked one more question. What would I tell other parents with entrepreneurial children? I said sometimes the best thing you can do is get out of their way. That dreams we don't understand aren't necessarily dreams that won't come true. I hugged her then, breathing in her familiar scent of white shoulders, perfume, and flower. I love you, Mom. Even when you didn't believe in my dreams, I knew you loved me. I love you too, baby. My billion-dollar baby. She laughed wetly. I still can't believe it. My daughter on the cover of Forbes. Later, as I drove back to my apartment, I thought about success and validation, about the price of proving people wrong. The Forbes story would focus on the numbers, the growth trajectory, the innovation, the market disruption. But for me, the real victory was sitting at that kitchen table again. No longer the family disappointment, but still the same person I'd always been. Just with better packaging. My phone buzzed with a text from Mom. Proud of you. Should have said it 3 years ago. Saying it now. We'll say it every day if you'll let me. I smiled, wiping away tears. Tomorrow, there would be photo shoots and interviews, the careful crafting of a success story for public consumption. But tonight, I was just Serena Blake, former paralegal, current CEO, and finally, my mother's daughter again. The billion-dollar valuation was nice. But that text? That was priceless.